Bonjour, Jeff Katurba here, host of KVNO's Morning Classics, and I am in Paris, standing in front of the longtime home of composer Francis Poulenc. And of course, a great many composers were from here or spent time here getting their careers launched. Francis Poulenc was born in Paris in 1899, and he lived in this apartment from 1947 until his death in 1963 at 5 Rue de Médicis. It's a French pronunciation for Medici, 5 Rue de Medici, across from Luxembourg Garden. Jardin de Luxembourg, or Luxembourg Gardens, was built by Marie de Medici in 1612, and it makes me wonder if Poulenc was inspired living across from the gardens. Did he have an apartment on the top of the building? I'm guessing he probably did, considering who he was. One wonders if he just crossed the street and went over to the garden to find inspiration. Poulenc was a member of Les Six, that famous group of French composers, but originally he wasn't taken too seriously. This was at the time of such composers as Claude Debussy, who was doing lots of experimental stuff. It's funny to think about Debussy being experimental now because he's part of the standard repertoire. But Poulenc was more engaged in creating traditional kinds of sounds with, melodies that you could actually recognize. So a lot of critics at the time and other musicians didn't take him so seriously. But Poulenc had depth. Poulenc also had this wild smile. A lot of people thought of him as a farceur. You think of farce, a jokester, because he had this wide smile. But he had a very deep emotional side. In fact, later on in his career, he would compose a lot of spiritual music. But again, he started out creating music that was on the lighter side, even though it did have depth to it. And what's wrong with that? Why can't both kinds of music exist? Light music with depth, and indeed, three kinds of music. Experimental music, because one day that experimental music might become part of the standard repertoire. Now, of course, if you've been to Luxembourg Gardens in Paris, you know how lovely it is. It's a great place to come and reflect, imagine, just have a little peace and quiet in the city. If you haven't been, I'm sure you can imagine it maybe by listening to the music of Francis Poulenc, because who knows, maybe he did indeed come here for inspiration for some of his amazing music.